everybody. Welcome to the Build Young, Grow Wealthy podcast. My name is Walida Cherie, and today I want to come to you with a book breakdown from the book The Wealth Choice by Dennis Kimbro. Without further ado, let's get into this. The book begins by asking the question, why aren't you wealthy? Take a minute and think about it. What are you doing every day with your time and your money? With me, what I personally do is I write down on Sunday nights what I want to get accomplished for the entire week. And this includes big tasks that I need to do for my business, as well as personal tasks such as working out and cooking. So whenever I want to know exactly where my time has gone, what I would do is go back into my calendar book and I can see exactly where I invested my time or should have invested the bulk of my time. When it comes to money, I check my account at the minimum at least twice a week to see exactly where my money is going. And there's a quote by John H. Johnson, who is the founder and CEO of Ebony Magazine, and he says, if you want to know how people feel about themselves, look at their bank account. Wealth isn't a matter of your circumstance. It's a matter of your knowledge and choice. Don't buy things that you don't need. It would eventually put you into debt and you will then become the slave of your debtors. When I go visit people's homes and they complain about not having money, when I do quick calculations in my mind about how much things cost, even if they bought them on sale, the amount of things that they have, how much more money they would have had towards things they really wanted, been able to take that trip, buy the house of their dreams, or even that car. But they neglected to be able to do so because of all the things that they have purchased throughout the years. The book also mentions learn to use the gifts and talents that God has given you to make a living for yourself. And I wholeheartedly believe in that. I believe that thus far, what has gotten me to this point is utilizing the gifts and the talents that I have. A quote that was inside of the book, it says, you will either live your dreams or live your fears, end quote. I have chosen every single day to live my dreams. Believe it or not, the journey of entrepreneurship is actually very scary because you don't have quote unquote benefits, you don't have a guaranteed paycheck, and you also don't have the family and friend support that you think you would have when you take a venture out like this. Opportunities are everywhere, so you should figure out a way to improve people's lives and you will become rich. Make all you can, save all you can, and give all you can. So that is the wealth choice principle. A quote from the book says, if you cannot save 10% of all that you earn, the seeds of greatness are not in you, end quote. W. Clement Stone. 4 things that can never be returned are the spoken word, the speeding arrow, the wasted life, and neglected opportunity. So now I want to transition and I want to talk to you about the 9 disciplines of Black millionaires. The first discipline is be passionate and focus on unique strengths. Develop clear, delineated goals. A question you might want to ask yourself is, where can I apply my talents and gifts to render the best advantage? If you find yourself working at a dead-end job and you know you have gifts and talents and are not being utilized, you have to ask yourself, how long are you planning to stay there while your gifts and talents are suppressed? A quote came from the book and it says, never do anything for the sake of money. If you find a vocation that you love and it adds value, the money will find you. Now, money is important because you need to have money to eat and to survive, but you don't want to trade your time for dollars for things that are not bringing eventual life towards you. So for instance, maybe you're working at a job, but at that job, you are networking with people, you are learning new skills, you are getting exposure to knowledge that you did not have prior knowledge to. Those are all things that are actually adding value to you. But if you're working at a job and there's no room for growth, there's no way that you're going to be able to expand your network or your knowledge, then maybe you should reconsider finding a different place to work. The second principle is autonomous and independent. There's a deep need for internal control, highly motivated self-starters. So this is a principle that's necessary if you want to be considered a Black millionaire. This is a discipline that they have. They don't usually need a cheerleader who are going to motivate them to do the work. They always find it within themselves to push themselves to do the work. Wealthy people do not use phrases such as if only. The greatest waste in the world is the difference between who we are and what we could have become. If you talk to any person who's in their 80s and 90s and beyond, if you talk to them and they have, the majority of their conversation is in regret, I personally feel sorry for people like that because that is a life that has been wasted. And I encourage you who are listening, if you are currently breathing, which you should be if you're listening to this podcast, then you should make every second of your life count. A quote from this particular principle says, if you plan on being anything less than you are capable of being, you'll probably be unhappy all the days of your life. And this is a quote by Abraham Maslow. The third principle is industrious. This is a person who has strong work ethic and they have a bias for action. Wealth will never open its doors to those who are unwillingly to pay the price in terms of sweat, sacrifice, and hard work. The fourth principle or the fourth discipline is creativity and innovation. Recognize the powers of ideas. The only skill sets that is more expensive than education is ignorance, end quote. And that is by Damon John. Learn how to develop ideas, connect with others, and impact the bottom line. There's an author who wrote the book, The 48 Laws of Power, The Art of Seduction, The Laws of Human Nature, and 33 Strategies of War. But in his book, The Laws of Human Nature, when asked why did he write that book, he said that he wrote that book because he felt like humanity was starting to lose creativity and innovation, and he believed that over time, bridges will be collapsing, books won't be written because people lack the creativity and the innovation that we need in order to survive as human beings. So that is a discipline that most Black millionaires all agree that you should have. The fifth discipline is never consider the possibility of failure, because failure reveals character and failure is never fatal. It's a down payment for success. Any idea may fail. The goal is to learn from it and gain wisdom. I remember growing up in public school, I was taught how to be perfect. I wasn't taught how to embrace failure. But over time, I learned that failure actually is okay because you get to learn from your mistakes. And I also consider Michael Jordan as a person who is a great example of this. He was not considered the great basketball player that he is known for now when he first got into the NBA. Not being picked up by teams that he wanted to get picked up from, they all taught him a lesson about failure, and that pain helped him become one of the greatest of all times. The sixth discipline is inquisitive, strong desire to know, quick to absorb and apply new information. The average African American spends about 7 hours a day watching TV or scrolling through social media. Black millionaires, however, hardly ever watch television and read about 2 books a month, mainly history, biographies, or money management. Any topic that can offer them advice, helpful information, or cautionary tales. And as you'll notice, if you're a new listener on this podcast, and if you are a returning listener on this podcast, I try to find books that are going around those particular topics because I realize how important they are. So these are actually books that I read personally for myself, but I'm using the time on my podcast to share this information with you. And I always encourage you to go behind me, read the books for yourselves, because you may find different lessons in the books, even though these are the lessons that I'm learning. Quote, if you wish to be wealthy, you must study the acquisitions of wealth, end quote. The wealthy do not waste any time engaging in ignorance. You need to ask yourself, was most of your time spent towards growing, or was it spent towards being stagnant or engaging in ignorant activities? The seventh discipline is strong sales skills. Sell is not a 4-letter word. You must learn how to sell. This is your number one way to become wealthy. You must be able to sell your story as well as your experience, mission, and expertise. I learned in my beginning journey of being an entrepreneur that people don't care about your product or your service. They care about you as a person, your story, and how you're going to help them. Every single thing in life is about sales. So if you want to become wealthy, you need to improve your sales skills. Number 8, the 8 discipline, savings, thrifty and frugal. Quote, if it doesn't make money, it doesn't make sense, end quote. The wealthy invest their money and spend what's left. The poor spend their money and invest what's left. So that means when you first get your paycheck, you should always consider investing first and then pay everybody else last. But most poor people pay everybody else first, and then whatever they have left over, then they'll consider investing it. You must learn how to save and budget if you plan to one day become a millionaire. The 9th discipline is spirituality. The gospel of wealth. True character is built in the toughest of times. Always work hard, be honest in all business dealings, and trust in the Lord. Quote, if you have the faith, God certainly has the power, end quote. Now I want to talk to you about the 7 laws of wealth that when you read the book, they give at the end of each chapter. The first law of wealth is wealth begins in mind but ends in the purse. This basically means you have to have the mindset to want to attract wealth in order to receive it. The The second law of wealth is decide that you will not be lacking. I read a quote, even though this is not one of my favorite people in the world, by Bill Gates, and he said, if you were born poor, that is not your fault. If you die poor, that's your fault. So you have to make the decision to determine that you won't be poor anymore. The third law, believe in yourself when no one else will. The fourth law, to thy own self be true, find your unique gifts. The fifth law, how may I serve thee? The sixth law, thou shalt own thy own business. And then the seventh law is make thy money grow. Now, in the chapter for Make Thy Money Grow, he gave 5 wealth building strategies of the Black financial elite. The number one rule was the best investment will always be yourself. And you can check out episode 16 of my podcast on 7 ways you can invest in yourself. Rule number 2, managing your finances is your responsibility. Rule number 3, get your spending under control. Rule number 4, pay yourself first. Saving is permissible. Rule number 5, make your money work as hard as you do. Overall, I enjoyed reading The Wealth Choice by Dennis Kimbro. I loved how he was able to interview so many Black elite people, which is, in my opinion, limiting the excuses that we as African Americans have for at least trying to play the game of money. All of the people that he interviewed, they had all type of ranges. Some came from single parent homes, homes with both parents present. Some were married, some were divorced, some had kids, some didn't. Some were in poverty, some were from middle class backgrounds. So this is a testament that no matter what, Black people in general have been able to rise above the circumstances that they are given. That is why I think I love The Wealth Choice so much, is because it is a book of hope, but it's a book of practicality to show that there are people out there who have been able to take raw materials, nothing, and create something and be able to establish wealth. I highly recommend this book to the person serious about obtaining wealth. Most of the information in this book isn't new to a person like me who has read hundreds of books studying how wealthy people get wealthy, but I still hope you, the listener, will walk away with at least one nugget that you can immediately apply and then read this book for yourself. You never know what may come out of it by investing your time and reading and learning the principles from this book yourself. If you enjoyed this podcast episode, please leave me a comment, share with a friend, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing for more great content. Until next time, I will talk to you later.